Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Yeah, messy hair at all, and I'm looking at it. Hope you're having a great night tonight. We're going to dig into some of the big debates among roller coaster enthusiasts and stuff. Just what exactly is a roller coaster, and can you count certain rides as coasters or not? And we're going to just really get into it tonight. I got a couple guests with me. We're going to have a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to this. So let's roll. So I hope everybody is having a great evening tonight. We're going to get into the big debate among roller coaster enthusiasts. Is it a coaster and can you count it? Because roller coaster nuts love to count their coasters, keep track of how many they've been on, and then they love to debate on whether their count is better or more accurate than somebody else's. So I have brought in a couple viewers and fans and coaster enthusiasts this evening to join me. So say hi to Derek as well as to Peyton.
Hey.
So this way, I think it'll be fun. Get a couple more opinions. I have told them, please feel free to disagree with me. Tell me when I'm dumb because, hey, it makes it more fun that way. So Derek, go ahead and introduce yourself real quick.
Yeah, so my name is Derek. I live in Ohio, so I'm between Cedar Point and Kings Island, and I've been a coaster enthusiast for probably about 6 or 7 years now. Didn't like them when I was younger, but started to like them as an adult, and really have just tried to ride as many as I can and go to as many parks as I can and just learn all about roller coasters.
Good to be here. And then Peyton.
Yeah, so I live in Indiana. So I'm pretty close to like Cedar Point and Kings Island area. I haven't been on a ton of coasters. I'm more of a primarily a like Disney and Universal, more immersive theme park type thing. But I find coasters still a really interesting topic to discuss. So yeah.
So we will have fun. I've already got a couple people asking questions. So Mr. Sam, thank you so much for the donation. But does a dangling coaster, I'm guessing you probably mean what we would call an inverted coaster, count? We will talk about that a little bit coming up. So we will get you a good answer. And then we were also asking about the new coaster at Six Flags St. Louis. Finally, after how many years? We will cover that. So those of you who are asking what kind of coaster, we'll get to you. Don't worry. I did try to organize my thoughts a little bit so I don't wander off with the squirrel, especially since we've got two dogs running around here this evening. So I actually have a PowerPoint to keep myself organized, and Judy's going to give me a bad time. So, Carolyn, I've heard things about Cedar Point. All thanks to SirWillow. Cedar Point's an amazing park. Even though I hate it, it's an amazing park.
I don't have much of a reference. Don't blame me.
Yeah. Okay, this is a great question. Is Ohio real?
No.
Okay. So let's jump into this here. So is it a roller coaster? The best place to start off is a definition. What is a roller coaster? And years ago, this is how old this debate is. It predates this. But back in 2004, I was running an email list called Roller Coaster Talk that had actually come out of rollercoaster.com. We had hundreds. I want to say we were pushing close to 1,000 people on this list at one point. So way back. And because of the debate, then I wrote a working definition for me. So this was kind of my definition. And I basically have 3 points on it. One, it must be powered by gravity for at least a portion of the ride, hence the coaster part of the name. If a ride's under electric power or some other means of propulsion through the entire ride, it is not a coaster. Therefore, trains are not coasters because they're powered the whole way. I've had people ask me about trains. No, a train is not a coaster. So it can't be powered the whole way. So if you've got a motor on the train or there's electricity running through the whole thing, in my mind, that eliminates it as a coaster. It must roll on wheels through the entire ride. Exceptions can be made for the lift. And I bend this rule a little bit. I will say that, but it must stay in alignment with those wheels as well. So if you have wheels on the bottom of the coaster and then it suddenly changes and it's using wheels on the sides or something like that, that's probably going to make me start questioning it. But it needs to roll on the wheels. Exceptions can be made for the lift, but even there, the wheels must be in contact and remain in the same relation to the track throughout. So allows for coasters with elevator lifts. For example, the old Lost Coaster Superstition Mountain had an elevator lift at the time. But their wheels remain in constant contact with the portion of the track. And that's going to come into play later. And then lastly, you have to go somewhere. So if you just rock back and forth, no, but if you travel on a track back and forth, yes. So that's basically my working definition of a roller coaster. Okay. Anything that you guys want to add or?
That's pretty on the nose. Yeah. I mean,
yeah. To me, the definition's always been, it has to run by gravity at some point, and I like to use running on a track. So that's my definition of it.
Yeah, I wrote down specific elevation change, running on track, and needs to go like a distance. So pretty much, similar to what you said.
So that gives us a working definition. Sounds like it's easy, but I think we'll all agree that there's always those coasters that and rides that don't fit neatly in there, and then you start going, So, and that's kind of where we end up next. Is there's different types of coasters. We've had people that have already asked. There's the inverted coaster where the track is on top. You've got your standard one where the track's on the bottom, and there's variations of that, like floorless coasters, looping coasters, wood coasters, hybrid coasters that look like wood, but it's a steel track. You have the old side friction if you ever get to Lakemont, where you're rolling, but there's nothing holding you on except rails on the side. And then all sorts of different variations of that. Something like the 4D coaster, such as X. You still have the track. The train stays attached to that track for the most part. But yeah, all sorts of different things like that. And I love the chat is already kind of going with different examples. And I can see that people are already commenting on some of the ones we're going to bring up.
Yeah.
So, that's basically kind of where we're at. So I love the old definition. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck.
Yeah.
But then you have those people that think they're a duck and aren't a duck. So, but
there could definitely be coasters where you can't really pinpoint it, but it just doesn't feel like it's a coaster. And I'm sure we'll get into some of those too.
Feel is really important to the overall,
yes,
crediting. Yeah.
And you'll have people that have different feelings.
Exactly.
And so our very first one that we'll talk about is one that I have seen all over the place, and that is Superman the Escape at Six Flags Magic Mountain. And I've seen people that are adamant it's a coaster. I've seen people that are adamant that it's not. So I kind of go back to my definition. Do the wheels stay attached to the track? Does it coast? Yep, all the way down that tower. So it coasts that way. And it's not powered on that coasting. So it rolls, it coasts. It's not powered. For me, it's a coaster. So,
yeah.
No, I mean, it almost reminds me of a scaled up version of a, of like one of those fairground, rides that go up and down like that. So I don't know, whenever I was initially looking at it, I was leaning more on the side of less of an actual coaster, because I've never been on it, but I've watched POVs. But I don't know, it fits the criteria, but as I said, I haven't been on it, and that's the feel aspect, But and for all intensive purposes, yes, coaster.
So yeah. I'm guessing you're thinking of the discos, which are basically the powered track that kind of goes back and forth.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's rotating. Yes.
Yeah.
And see, those are powered the whole way. There's a big one that has a brief moment it's not powered, but still really attached to the power. So they don't count for me.
Yeah.
But
yeah. to me, I mean, Superman. To me, it is a coaster, and you know, the obvious comparison or close to comparison is Top Thrill Dragster and King the Ka.
Mhm.
And really, the only difference between those and Superman is that they go over the top and they come back down forwards, where Superman just comes back down, well, backwards. Depending on which way it launches, it's launched both ways, but it comes back down the same path that it takes to get up, and that's you know, that's really the only difference. It's still gravity powered the whole way down, and after that initial launch, it's all gravity taking over. So.
Yeah, there is a group of people out there, and somebody had mentioned Montezuma. There we go. The same idea that don't consider what's a shuttle coaster a coaster, and that basically is one that launches out of the station and it may go back and forth, um, but it doesn't do a full circuit, a full loop, and they don't count as a coaster. I'm like, it's rolling, it's coasting, yeah, it's still a coaster. Um, so for me, Superman is the old shuttle loops, like Montezuma's Revenge. Those count for me. Now, where I do get a little weird, um, some people will count racing coasters where there's two tracks side by side as separate coasters. And I generally do, but Superman, I don't. Why? Because they're exactly the same.
Well, would you consider them different if they were, you know, completely different tracks? I mean, because if
Yes.
they're exactly the same, I don't know. I'd consider it more as it was an experience all put together as one. So in my book, I wouldn't like argue with anybody, but like in my book,
Mhm.
I'd consider it, you know, as like one experience if it was, you know, the same ride track, you know.
Yeah.
But I understand, yeah,
For me, a racing coaster, because the tracks are slightly different,
yeah.
they can operate independently, which Superman can. But because even just at the very end, they'll diverge to
Oh
come into
yeah,
the
that's
station.
fair.
I
Yeah,
count it. I count it
definitely.
separately.
One turns left or one turns right or something like
Right.
that.
That's
They're
fair. Yeah.
mirrored.
So, let's see. Coaster fan is asking if the Zamperla discos aren't credits and the Larson Super Loops aren't credit. Why are the Skyline Skywarps credits? Ooh, okay, I
Yeah.
got to figure out what a Skyline Skywarp is.
This is it's basically the double Larson loop. There was one at Discovery
Oh,
Kingdom for a short time, the Harley Quinn.
Yeah, I see.
yes. Okay, and those for me also would not be,
Yeah,
simply because they're powered the whole way.
Yeah.
yeah, that's where I'm at too with those.
Yeah, if it's powered the whole way, it's not good. The Larson Super Loops, they don't ever coast. They're completely controlled the whole way around. Same thing with, oh goodness, Knobles is bringing back an old one. Uh, I always want to call it Berserker because that's the name I'm familiar with. Uh, it's the old Schwarzkopf. Um,
Oh,
it goes in a circle.
curve.
Yeah, by Iron Curve. Thank you.
Yeah.
Not a coaster because it's powered the whole way. Great ride, fantastic ride, but not a coaster. So, we've got a couple people asking about rides. Don't worry, I'm going to get to a couple of these that people are commenting on here, but let's hit the next one. Fire in the Hole. Somebody asked about dark rides that have a drop. Fire in the Hole fits this description perfectly. So does Blazing Fury. There are a couple others that the ride is powered all the way through, but at the very end, there's one free drop. So, do you count it?
Yeah, to me, if it's primarily a dark ride and there's just maybe one coaster element to get you, get you back to the start or something, I would not count it as a coaster. To me, that's a dark ride. May have one or two coaster elements, but that's it. To me, I would consider that a dark ride.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat because I think like coasters can specifically be used in a setting for storytelling, but because of just the different experience of riding a coaster, you can't have that same level of intimacy as a actual dark ride, I guess. So whenever a coaster or whatever, something like Fire in the Hole, slows down the majority of the attraction, but just still has that one element at the end, you got to think, what is it more primarily trying to convey as an attraction? And for this experience, I'd say that is a dark ride experience.
See, I know people that will count it, and Blazing Fury at Dollywood, I don't. It's not enough of a coaster for me to count. But like I said, it gets weird, and you're going to see that in just a minute. Dustin's asking, is Crush at Disneyland Paris powered or free fall? Crush at Disneyland Paris is a spinning coaster, as I recall. It's not a free fall ride. It's a spinning coaster inside a building.
Yes.
Great ride, actually. I
haven't been on it, but the POVs I've seen, maybe the POVs don't do justice. But okay, because I was gonna say, like, I love the theming, and the actual coaster station is beautiful. Or the load station rather is beautiful. But I don't know, from what I've seen of video, I feel bad now. I'm not trying to call anybody out. But yeah.
It's not powered on the ride. It just has the lift hill. So it's if you were to remove the building, it's a regular spinning coaster. And then just add other effects too. Let's see. Don't remember noticing any gravity on Black Diamond at Knoebels. No, Black Diamond is a straight dark ride. So it wasn't open last time I was there, so we're going to get it this time, I hope. But Fire in the Hole has as many unpowered sections as Russians. Okay. Not going to get political, but that's a great comment. Okay. Let's see. Oh, that was just funny. But no, generally I don't consider dark rides coasters. They're a whole another deal. And that's why it's actually has its own enthusiast club. Really neat group. Okay, so here I don't have the name on it, but this is one several people have asked about. Journey to Atlantis. And there's two different ones. The smaller picture on top there is the one down in Florida. The bigger picture is the one in San Diego. The one in Florida, what you can't see, is kind of behind where the drop is. There's one, you go up another little lift hill, and there is a quick coaster section that goes up, splash down, and that's it. And then SeaWorld San Diego, you can see it's got a lot more extensive part of it. It's got two big coaster sections along with the splashdowns and floating. So I don't know if either of you guys have been on either one of these or not.
I haven't, but I love these rides from what I've seen and from what I've heard in the history of them. As you can probably tell, I'm a little outmatched here. But I would consider both of them coasters. Obviously the San Diego one, much more of a coaster, but as I mentioned with the other ride, this one is primarily, this one is built as a dark ride, and before they shut down a bunch of elements of the ride, was a beautiful attraction, and it still has elements of it, just they aren't the same.
It's a shadow of its former self.
But I think it has more than just that one element, more than just a drop. It has a little section and the big drop, and I don't know. I would consider both of them coasters.
Okay.
I've ridden the one in Florida. I've not ridden the one in California. But the one in California, I think is a coaster. Just looking at it and watching the POVs, a lot of coaster sections that are doing different things. The one in Florida, I feel like the coaster sections are they're just there to get you to the other parts, to get you to and from the dark ride and the splashdown parts. I don't consider the Florida one a coaster. To me, it's more dark ride and splashdown, something closer to Splash Mountain than a roller coaster.
I count the San Diego version. I don't count Florida.
Oh man, so I'm in the what's it called, minority here.
Oh no, Judy agreed with you.
Mm.
But Florida, it's just one small section at the end, and it's literally a twist, turn, splash, and then you float to the station. That's it. And just in the whole, for me, Florida's a flume ride. San Diego's a coaster.
Yeah.
But I know people that disagree. And that's one I can understand. So it's kind of that fire in the hole thing for me. It falls closer to fire in the hole than it does a coaster. So it's an amazing ride, though. My goodness, I love.
What about something like Gringotts?
Gringotts kind of falls into the same thing. It's got one drop on it. It's powered the whole entire way except for that one drop section. And that's why I don't count it. It's an amazing ride. Oh my goodness,
it's such a great
fantastic ride.
Yeah.
But I don't count it as a coaster.
Yeah, I'm with you. Same.
Yeah, that's one that I've struggled with too, and I know a lot of people do consider Gringotts a coaster, but to me, it's a dark ride, and again, the coaster segments are just kind of to tie everything to tying it together and getting you back to or getting you to where you need to be, but it's I feel like it's really a dark ride.
Yeah, it doesn't have enough. I'd want more than one little tiny section. So
definitely. Richard Meredith asks a really interesting question here. Oh, well, you pulled up a different one, but
didn't notice any gravity, and that was it.
Oh no, it's
though.
Yeah.
Wow. So how much of the ride has to be a coaster and not a flume ride to qualify as a coaster? Enough for it to be a coaster, but not a flume or dark ride.
No, I guess that's valid. I was thinking a little bit more into it, but whatever. That's fair. As I said, I'm a little out of my depth here.
This is where we're talking about the feeling thing for me.
Yeah.
If it's enough where I feel like I'm on a coaster for part of it, I'll probably count it as a coaster. But if I feel like it's just a segment of a dark ride, I don't count it.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's just there's nothing to quantify it. It just does it feel like a coaster or does it feel like something else?
Yeah. And that's why there's so much debate. You have people going, but it coasts, and so they will count it. Okay. And like I said, I think the Journey to Atlantis is a great example of where it gets murky. And I count one, I don't count the other. And why? Just because. And Brendan, feelings, nothing more than feelings. And Alexa is talking to me. Alexa, be quiet. It's talking. It's takes me to Atlanta. So Matt's asking if it doesn't count if it's powered, where do you place rides like Mac powered mine trains? Not a coaster. They're powered and they're trains, but if there's a power all the way through, it is not a coaster. So.
Yeah, that's one that I don't count either. Just like the one in Canada's Wonderland that goes through the mountain, the Thunder Run. Yep.
Yeah. Knott's Berry Farm's Calico Mine Train is a good example of this. I know some people that will try to claim it as a coaster because it has one section at the end where it coasts. It's a dark ride train. It's powered. So, nope.
Coaster wouldn't have even popped in my head for that one. Yeah.
That's the one. Those are the ones where I can't start going, okay, you're getting a little desperate for credits there to pump that count. So, but then I have people that will accuse me of pumping my list in other ways too. So I'll get to that in a little bit. This is one I have seen people arguing about on Reddit recently. And oh my goodness, it got heated. First generation Intamin drop towers. So I don't know. Have either of you guys had a chance to experience these?
Yeah, I've ridden Demon Drop both at Cedar Point and at Dorney. But that's the only one of these that I've ridden.
Not yet, but I've watched POVs of them, and they're interesting.
So the very first one I experienced, I've been on 4 of them, I think, was actually the Edge at California's Great America. And when they first opened it, they actually were doing what they called the penny shuffle. And the ops actually had rolls of pennies, and they would give you a penny if you wanted. And when you got to the top of the tower and it pushed out, you were supposed to put the penny on your knee, and then as it floated up off your knee, you were supposed to catch it.
Sounds incredibly dangerous.
Yeah,
sounds awesome.
Dropping objects.
Whatever. Throw a couple pennies down to the crowd. It's cool.
Yeah. So don't do that anymore for some reason. Okay, so where do your feelings lie on this one?
So this is a tough one for me because based on the definition that I have, it runs by gravity and it runs on a track. I would have to call it a coaster, but then when I get to how it feels like a drop tower to me. And so that's where I land is I have to say it's a flat ride. It's a drop tower. It's not a coaster. Even though the whole definition I've made in my head and I sort of stand by, it would fulfill that, but I just can't bring myself to calling this a coaster.
Okay.
Yeah. As you said, I haven't been on it, so it's pretty much what you said, Derek. It fits the criteria, but feel is the big thing, and you can't feel it from a POV. That's the deal. But I don't know. In technical, I don't know. It's a weird one. It's a goofy one. I'm gonna say maybe. If you want to say it is, then maybe. But I don't know.
So
you're kind of onto something about the big old flat ride thing.
So here's where my definition comes in. Mm-hmm. If you remember, I said that the wheels have to stay in relative alignment with the track. So when you go up the tower, there's actually a set of wheels on the back of the car that you're in alignment with. And then disengages from that. It uses the lift to push you forward. And then it reattaches to those back wheels, but they're guide wheels. They're not running wheels. There's a slot on that track that they stay in that's meant to help smooth that transition to the bottom. But then when it finishes at the bottom, it transitions back to the bottom, the floor wheels on the car again. So it changes from the back to the floor, to the back to the floor. And so it's changing alignment.
Yeah.
And the wheels aren't necessarily meant to roll. They're meant to guide and keep it within its running area. So for me, I don't count it.
Yeah, no, after saying that, no, I'm with you. It's no. That is not a coaster.
But I have people that just get, but it rolls and coasts on wheels. it really, if you ever get the chance to ride it, and Derek may agree with me on this, you really don't roll, you slide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's why it doesn't feel like it, because you're not actually rolling, you're sliding on this thing.
Yeah,
until you get to the end. So yeah, I've never counted it. I know some people that do. Good for you. I can't do it. So
yeah, I've been hearing that a lot more lately. People counting this as a coaster, and I just
yeah,
I don't get that, but
yeah. But then we get into others, and these last couple things I see people argue about. Somebody else mentioned something I'll come back to in a little bit. Kiddie coasters. Okay. I know people who do not count kiddie coasters because they're not full coasters. I think or because it's meant for kids. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, by definition, they are a coaster. They're just on a smaller scale, but they do everything. As far as the definition goes, they do everything that the quote unquote grown up coasters do. Mm-hmm. And so I don't have an issue with them being called coasters. Physically, they are. Yeah, that's
okay.
to me they are.
Yeah, no. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Peyton.
No, I was going to say they definitely definitely are coasters. But like whenever I was compiling my list of all the things I've been on, I didn't add kiddie coasters
Mm-hmm.
just because in terms of experience, it's not the same thing. They're designed for a different audience, but I wouldn't argue with somebody wanting to count them because they fit the criteria. It's just I think it's up to the person, and how they look at rides.
For me, it's a coaster regardless of the size. I count it, and I have been accused of padding my numbers. I have been accused of occasionally borrowing kids so I can get on some of them.
Yeah,
But
that's true. A lot of parks won't let you ride as an adult. They won't let you ride the kiddie coasters unless you're accompanying a small child.
So I tell people, if you some of the coaster enthusiasts, I'm like, if you really don't think a kiddie coaster counts as a coaster, go to Knoebels and ride High Speed Thrill Coaster at Phoenix Fall Fun Fest. It's the perfect definition of a kiddie coaster, but they whip that thing, and oh my goodness, it is a ride. Yeah, and there's nobody who rides that who calls it a kiddie coaster at that point. And Richard, I've been on some pretty wicked kiddie coasters. Yep. So I've always counted them. It fits every other definition of it. Sure, it's smaller, but it's still a roller coaster.
Yeah.
So that's not okay. I love this. If my friend cries in fears on it, it's a coaster. Okay, that's amazing.
If it rollers and it coasts, yeah, definitely.
So, a weaponized says, if you're pulling less than 10 G's, it's a kiddie coaster. So if you don't know, I think the most intense coaster pulled like 4.5 G's, something like that. Goliath on its Helix that a lot of people will brown or black out on is 3.8, I think. Yeah, you don't want to go on something that's 10 G's. So, oh, and here you go. Something that clearly isn't a credit. The simulators. Yeah, you don't get credit for riding the coaster.
What? No, I'd say you sit down in that look. You know what? What about that experience at Epcot back in the day where you could build your own roller coaster?
Sum of all thrills?
Sum of all thrills. Yeah, you know what? I count every experience as a credit. That counts.
It was fun, but no, definitely wasn't a coaster. Let's see. If they are powered, pulled on a rope, are they actually coasting? If it's only for the lift hill, if they pull you up the lift hill and then let you go and coast, it's a coaster. So, because I do know a couple homemade coasters like that where they pull you on a rope. But if you get pulled on the rope the whole way, nope. All right. Last one. And this will address a couple different things. Carnival or traveling coasters, and we can actually throw in relocated coasters into the same thing. So, and I know a lot of people that will argue about this one. So what do y'all think?
Yeah, so to me, it is a coaster. It fits all the definitions just because it's not permanently, doesn't have permanent foundations in the ground. It still fits the definition, so it is a coaster. And then this kind of goes with relocated coasters, but it's only one coaster, even if you ride it in two different spots of land. Mm-hmm. To me, that's still one coaster, and that's not. I don't agree with double counting it as two different coasters if it's been relocated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, no. Yeah, a coaster is a coaster. If it fits the criteria, it fits the criteria. But yeah, I'm sorry to be boring, but I'm just with you on that. You're completely right. If it's relocated, it's pretty much the same experience. I mean, in terms of like ride experience, yes. Location, maybe that adds or subtracts to the experience, but overall, coaster is a coaster,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's where I then kind of get, weird. So if you're going with same ride experience, do you count every boomerang? or SLC because they're the same coaster.
I don't know. I mean, they're basically the same thing. I don't know. I don't like boomerangs because of that. But you know what? You make a good point there. I don't know. I don't know enough.
Yeah, yeah. To me, they are different coasters because they're physically different track and different train, and that to me is a different coaster, even if it's the same layout that's been cloned dozens of times.
So I'm actually in agreement with you. I will count a fair coaster, but if I know it's the same exact coaster, different fare, I won't count it again. So I count it once. Relocations for me gets into this weird middle ground. It really depends upon the relocation and what they've done with it.
Mhm.
If they have done a major overhaul, changed the trains, major landscaping changes, something that really changes the atmosphere or experience of it, I might count it again.
Yeah, that's what I was leaning towards. Yeah.
And here's where I really get some people start accusing me of things, because I generally don't count, a coaster that's moved twice, but I do. And you remember I mentioned I don't count Superman the Experience twice. I count it once. I generally count racing coasters twice because I'll count once for each track. Old Colossus at Magic Mountain falls into this weird loop for me because there's two different tracks, so I count each one once. But then they would also have certain times of the year that they would actually pull one of the trains off of Cyclone, put it on Colossus backwards. And so then you kind of go, all right, most people, no, they don't count it. I count it because it's a different train and a completely different experience. And then kind of go, and I'm not really counting the Superman in the same park, so it kind of balances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get what you're saying, and I'm kind of on the other side because even to me, like the B&M stand-ups that have been converted into floorless, to me that's still the same coaster. The forces are a little bit different when you're sitting versus standing, but it's still so even that drastic of a change of trains to me is still the same ride.
Yep. Now, and just to mess it up even more, is it Rougarou at Cedar Point?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't count it again. I've ridden it as Mantis and Rougarou. I don't count it a second time.
Okay, so we agree on that part.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
no,
we agree on that
that's
part.
one ride. Yeah.
And like I said, it's one of those things. It's hard to be consistent
Yeah.
because there's these little niggling things, and so.
Yeah, I think all three of us are finding here that we're all inconsistent and all over the place in our personal opinions. So
Yes,
that's what makes it fun, though.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so and Coaster Fan brings up a good point here, and I'll drop out the PowerPoint at this point. So would Steel Phantom and Phantom's Revenge be separate credits? Same coaster, but a drastic layout change. For me, they're not the same coaster. There's small portions of it, but there's major portions that are different and different trains, and it's a complete redo in my mind.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It's the beginning, the first drop, the second drop are pretty much the same. It's different track, but it's pretty much the same. But then the second half is completely different, where you're doing the airtime instead of the inversions. To me, those are two different coasters.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, if there's new track, not like replacement track, like new track, going new directions different from the original ride, then it is a new ride. Yeah. Pretty simple.
So Judy makes this easy. I find it easier to count everything.
Yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so a good example though of the rebuilding is Space Mountain at Disneyland. Because you had the original Space Mountain, and then they completely ripped out the old one, and they built a new one, but it's the exact same layout. So where do you go on that one?
I don't want to say anything because I don't want to look dumb.
No, to me that's the same coaster.
Mhm. Or
Same experience.
Hulk Islands of Adventure is the same thing.
Yep. Hulk
Um,
the same way.
I don't know.
Just rebuilt the track in the same spot.
I don't know. I think I would, if somebody were to count that and make a big deal out of it, then I'd probably make fun of them for it. But generally saying, I mean, like, okay, it's technically a different ride, technically. But if you want to get into all the semantics, you're probably annoying. So it's so it's yeah. It's for all intents and purposes, it's the same ride, but technically not. If you wanted to dig into it.
And see, so that's where I pad my numbers.
Yeah.
I do count them because they're completely new ride systems. They're
Yeah.
completely new track. At Hulk, they're completely new trains. Outside of the location, there's nothing that's the same with it. So I do count them as no, but I do understand why people don't.
Hulk
So.
especially though, because the redo of the ride is the ride experience just feels so. I don't know if it necessarily feels so much different. It just feels better and more improved and more
still make my head around the same way.
Yeah, I'm just I think I get where you're coming from, definitely. Yeah.
But and like I said, that's one of those, again, not cut and dry. And people say, well, why would you count twice? Well, do you count all your boomerangs? Do you count all your mice? Do you count? It's a separate, build. So, but
yeah, I was just going to say there's my inconsistency where I wouldn't count Space Mountain or Hulk, but I do count every boomerang and every SLC and every Batman.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go.
I love this. If the wheels leave alignment, it's not a coaster, it's a wreck and a lawsuit. So, let's see. Would Space Mountain on Paris with all the versions be new coasters? No. Just because they changed the music and the videos playing, it's still the same coaster.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep, that one wouldn't change at all. Only difference with Hulk is the new track, new supports, new trains, new computers. It's literally it's built in the same location, but everything on it is new. They did replace everything with it. So they kept the theming and the location the same. That's why I count it. So, but yeah, I know I tend to be in a minority about that. So any other questions or closing comments? I think we hit most of it there.
Yeah.
So you can see where I get to pad my numbers a little bit. I think just about every enthusiast pads their numbers in some way, except for those that don't count the kiddie coasters, don't count the carnival coasters, don't count clones. And then I'm kind of like, why are you counting?
Yeah, no, I guess that's fair. Like, I started counting mine, and I guess after talking, I'm like, I guess my number is a lot lower than it should be. But yeah, it was interesting digging into this a little bit more with more experienced coaster people.
Mm-hmm.
Because as much as I absolutely I adore dark rides and I love the theory of immersion and stuff like that. I don't know. Roller coasters are just. They're such a different beast, if that makes sense. I mean, they're fundamentally different in how they entertain people, but it's just as interesting, just a little bit more technical, if that makes sense, Yeah.
Well, from the outside, you think, oh, everybody agrees on what's a roller coaster. That's easy to figure out.
No.
Yeah. And then you start talking and it gets quite entertaining sometimes.
Yeah,
definitely.
I think the bottom line is every enthusiast is going to have their own rules about what counts, and
yep,
two people having ridden the exact same rides overall may have completely different coaster counts just because of what they count and what they don't.
Yep, and that's ultimately what it comes down to is count what you want to count and what you want to give credit for. And it's fun to keep track of your count. It's fun to tell other people, but realize that the way you count isn't the same way somebody else counts, and that's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So, any closing comments, guys? And Richard, I'm with you. This is one of the reasons I love
Yes.
the RMC coasters, because they're like a modern version of a wood coaster. I love them. But yeah.
All right.
I think that's it. I'm just looking over the comments here and seeing if there's anything new. Oh, and here's somebody. I honestly hate what the Titan track is doing to some of the Woodies. That's an interesting take. There have been a couple that they converted that I think needed it. There were a couple they did I don't think needed it. Mean Streak was horrible. There was a reason it was called Mean Squeak. Oh, and Hurt Your Knees. I mean Hercules. And some of those old ones. But there were a couple like Roar at Discovery Kingdom. I'm like, why did you? That was a great ride. So I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, I haven't found a coaster yet. I won't ride at least once. There's some I will not ride a second time, but so. Well, in that case, I want to say thank you again to Derek and Peyton for joining me tonight. I hope you all have had a good time.
Absolutely.
Something a little different, something a little nerdier for me. But thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you two for joining me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank
as
you.
well to my financial supporters. And yeah, huge shout out to my patrons and YouTube members. Couldn't do it otherwise. Before we leave, if it's not at least Mach 50, it's a kiddie ride.
There you go.
Sounds great. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining me. Have a wonderful night. Judy is like, no, don't stop. Unfortunately, we got work tomorrow.
Yep.
So, have a great night, everybody. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Adios.